Hi, this is Comic Talk. I'm Joshua,
I'm Drew.
and this is our monthly review for August. Right? Yeah. So, cue that thing.
We got some tops, we got some bottoms. We're going to start with the tops. First on the tops, we have Descender by Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen. This is number 14. And in this issue, we get a very clever sort of aftermath perspective of when the Harvesters came by means of the little robot dog, who has been a pretty big character up to this point. I mean, he's been in a lot of scenes and stuff, but I never really expected to get exposition of the robot dog. But we do, and it turns out to be very powerful and very endearing.
Right. And this gives us something we've wanted since the beginning, and pretty much anybody who is reading this has wanted, and that is some more information on what it was like when this went down. Right? Because the whole thing is that, like, after the big thing happens, and so we finally get to jump back and look at the big thing happening.
Yeah, post-space apocalypse.
Right. And instead of being big and bold and bombastic, it's toned down real soft and quiet through the perspective of this little robot dog. So it takes a turn that you wouldn't have expected that makes it, I think, more memorable than
Definitely.
if they would have just done it with people screaming and running and things blowing up and getting smashed. It definitely has a much bigger impact by pulling it back and very softly telling this story.
Yeah, usually in these sci-fi books, you're caught in this sort of continuous mode of trying to figure out like what's going on and stuff, because they have an entire different status quo than we're used to established. You know, it's a different time period, different planets. There's all these robots and shit. And the fact that this one pulled it back makes it probably, given it's the most fresh, but if I try to think of single issues of Descender that I've read, like this one definitely stands out among them.
It's interesting because it's the least dialogue-y, the least written traditional sort of thing. And this has been an interesting series because it rides the line between like an epic adventure and more of a classic sci-fi, like an Asimov, Herbert kind of thing. And this is definitely going more towards the Herbert or Asimov style of really pulling back and doing personal stories just set in a sci-fi universe to help pull the reader away from it and give you an outside perspective of humanity.
Yeah, it's character drama. It just happens in space.
Right. And that's one of my favorite things about sci-fi is that when you put it in a different place, it makes it easier to look at the characters because you're not caught up in the setting, right? So you take them out of where you're used to, and then you have to examine it more carefully. And this does that superbly by giving you this funny little robot dog.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
I think sci-fi as a whole kind of gets a bad rap because people think of it as just look how cool all these lasers and shit are.
Right, genre work, yeah.
But yeah, this is definitely not that.
Right. So. This is the top end of sci-fi. You know, if you like sci-fi, you'll like this. Really, you know, if you're a real sci-fi fan, I think this is perfect, and probably for people that aren't too. But
yeah, I'm not a big sci-fi fan.
Yeah, I am, and I love it, and you're not, and you love it. So there you go.
Buy the trades, get the back issues, read it.
So next, let's talk about Astonishing AntMan number 11 by Spencer and Rosanas and Boyd.
So he's in jail. And yeah, we get some backstory on that. Again, we missed the last issue of this, so it was nice kind of filling in the pieces. But I don't want to confuse those filling in the pieces with things that actually happened in this issue. So.
Right. Well, one of the fun things about this issue is it's got a lot of the tropes that you would expect from a superhero in jail. It's got a lot of the feel, or at least what you could maybe call like genre tropes of guy in jail. But then it's just played off in the Ant-Man jokey kind of way. So, you know, it feels reminiscent of things like different jail drama films and TV shows like Shawshank Redemption and Orange is the New Black. And it plays with a lot of those ideas, but then just goofy and makes you laugh.
Yeah. There's a ton of clever shit in this book to love. Them all showing up to visit him in their super suits was fantastic. The fact that he has this sunshiny, positive disposition through progressively getting his ass kicked more and more in jail every day is fantastic. The people that got him in jail kind of shrugging off their responsibility of the whole thing was fantastic. I mean, this is just, there's so much to love. And I think one of the things that really stood out to me in this issue particularly was Spencer's method of bringing back seeds that he had planted like forever ago and bringing them kind of to fruition.
Well, he's kind of forced to face these things because he's in jail. So if somebody comes to visit him, like, he's going to talk to him, you know?
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I feel is part of it, is part of the idea here.
But you get other bits like, I mean, yeah, the his boss does, but the whole reality TV thing, like, I mean, that is not a necessary point of the story. But I think a lot of times, especially being a funny book, like, you forget about long form storytelling and stuff because all the comedy is just like one-liners, you know, visual humor, just clever little bits and stuff, and you forget that, you know, there's an actual good writer behind all of this.
Right.
So I think it accomplishes both of those things really well.
I do too. I think this book is criminally underrated. I hardly ever see people mention it. Even like, you know, what's good at Marvel? You barely see this mentioned, and it's crazy to me because I think it's the funniest thing at Marvel.
Yeah, maybe just the best overall.
It's really good.
Maybe.
You know,
we have another one that we're going to talk about.
It's up there with a few other things, but yeah, it's really good. Let's just stay on that theme then. Let's talk about the Vision, King Walta and Bel Air. This is issue 10. And also, we were back and forth about putting Sheriff of Babylon on here as well. We figured, we're doing a King book. We won't talk about Sheriff of Babylon this month.
Yeah, just do one King book.
So let's talk about the Vision.
What happened in the Vision?
Well, this is the one after the death of his son, and they're kind of sequestered to house arrest, really, because, I mean, he's the Vision. He's a superhero. He saved the world 37 times or whatever, right? So they're not just going to throw him in jail or whatever. And, I mean, how could you? He's the fucking Vision.
Yeah.
Right? So they just kind of sequester him and tell him, you stay put while we figure out what to do.
On the honor system.
Yeah. And so this is the family really dealing with the aftermath of it, and really we're watching the unraveling really start to happen here. They're really falling apart, and it's becoming super obvious.
This whole storyline has done a great job of, because he's always very objective about everything, like inclusive of the idea of justice. And up to this point, he hadn't been placed in a lot of situations where emotion may cloud his sense of right and wrong or justice and whatnot. And even up to this point, like, I can't say that he's wrong, like, for doing the things that he is doing. But it is very clever, like, putting this very robotic, you know, well, clearly robotic character in these situations and saying, well, how would an intelligence of that degree respond? I
think a good little quote for this is, to err is to be human. And that's really what we're starting to see. Like, as soon as they try to be human, he makes a family, and they try to be humans, things start to fuck up, right? Because that is what happens when you're, you know, with loved ones and you're trying to live your life. Like, you fuck things up. And when you're super-powered beings that can, you know, shoot laser beams and
go through walls and
you know, all the kind of stuff they can do, when you fuck up, you're really going to fuck up. So that's kind of what this is. And it's part of what makes it so great, because it is sci-fi, but again, like Descender, it's sci-fi that shines a light on humanity and makes you think about what it does mean to be human, and what is right and wrong, and how do you decide these things, what is objectivity, what is subjective. And for, you know, a mainstream Marvel comic book to give somebody room to do that is pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, given we're not dealing with an A character, but props to Marvel. I don't see anybody at DC doing this shit. So.
No, not even close. This, even more than Descender, I put this up there in the top echelon of sci-fi
easily
writing in general. I put it up there with, it's really reminiscent of Philip K. Dick. People that love Philip K. Dick really have to read this. It's right there with The Android's Dream of Electric Sheep. and all of his other work. It's awesome.
No caveats. It's just great.
Yeah. Let's stick on things that we're thinking are just great. Let's talk about Mark Millar and Frank Quietly's Jupiter's Legacy 2, issue number 3.
The gang is trying to get Grandpa back in the fold. Grandpa Skyfox.
Right. Yeah. And really the thing we loved about this, I think
Skyfox.
there was 2 things. There was Skyfox and just really great art. Simple, to the point art that just tells the story wonderfully.
And it's not a departure from like what we've come to expect at this point by any means. Like it's very true to form. But it's just extra good in this one for some reason. I don't know why. It's just extra good. Yeah,
it just takes this superhero sheen and then just scuffs it up a little.
Yeah.
Right? It just... And it fits with the characters because Skyfox has a vodka and a cigarette, so it makes sense that he's a little, his outfit's a little frumpy.
Yeah.
It's
going to be digital and shiny.
Right, and you get that throughout everybody. There's a little bit of scruff on everybody's chin, and that makes its way through everything. There's boxes sitting around in the secret lair. Just the little touches that make it feel lived in.
And I know we've already mentioned it, but let's give it its due diligence. Skyfox is fucking awesome.
Yeah, great character. Just so much fun to read.
Yeah, I really want a Skyfox solo series now.
Me too.
I think we mentioned it after we read it, but now that he's in the Millar world of characters, I hope he keeps him going.
Yeah, he's great, and he just seems perfect for Millar. Just the perfect Mark Millar character.
And he's not really a facsimile of anybody.
No.
Is the thing.
No, he's really not.
When I saw him, I was like, oh, that's going to be like Batman, but it's not.
It's not Batman at all. If anything, he's maybe Green Arrow-esque.
Maybe.
The liberal, like, Denny O'Neil Green Arrow. That's maybe the closest thing I can think of. If you really took that character to the logical conclusion,
sure,
you'd get a Skyfoxy kind of guy. He'd probably go rogue and end up being a bad guy because he'd, be just too liberal for most of the other heroes.
But again, he's probably not going to be taken to that logical conclusion. But Millar was not afraid to take a character to that conclusion.
Right.
So that illustrates what's great about this book. He can really make a point with these comfortable feeling kind of superhero characters.
Right. Awesome stuff. Good job.
Archie number 11 by Wade, Patilli, and Jampol.
Good old Jampol doing the breakdowns.
Jampol. Oh.
I think what we loved about this one, it's Archie. We don't need to go over what happens. It's about all the bands. What we loved about this one was really clever meta storytelling at the front end. And then at the back end, it turns into just a really soft, well-told character moment. Really, he extends this simple thing that could have been done in a couple panels into the last 3 or 4 pages in just a beautiful way. It's absolutely touching.
Yeah, this book has a way of giving you like some, I don't want to say they're cheap, easy laughs. They definitely come off that way, but there's a certain cleverness to them that puts them at the upper echelon of that sort of humor.
It's sophisticated slapstick.
Yeah. And then at the other point in the book, you usually get something very like heartfelt. It's the awe scene in like a 90s sitcom. And that, again, I would put in the upper echelon of 90s sitcom awe scenes. It's really good for what it is.
Yeah, and it's just so clean and different. There's no villains. It's not a huge epic arc. There's just a character drama. It's just a day-to-day storytelling, slice of life kind of thing, but just ratcheted up and made silly and fun. But by an incredible creator and artist who make it just vastly readable.
Yeah, I never thought I would like Archie, let alone this much.
Yeah, it's great.
So, yeah, believe it or not, Archie's good.
Yeah.
I say that to people all the time.
Yeah, me too.
Like, I know it's hard to believe, so just fucking brace yourself. But
Right.
Archie's really good right now.
Yeah.
Now you can't borrow mine because I'd fucking love him.
Right, yeah. Don't want you to mess them up.
Right. Fucking up my Archies.
Okay, well, let's jump on here to Moon Knight number 5. Interesting.
On this one.
to mention that with all the DC love that's been happening with Rebirth from, you know, most of people, they've got this huge boost in sales, blah blah blah. Psh, we got 3 Marvels at the top for us, and neither of us are really huge Marvel guys anyway. No. You know, but it's just working out that way.
I highly prefer DC. We're
Right.
talking about like the best of the big 2 of all time. Yeah.
There's not a lot at Marvel that really stands up to the greatest DC stuff of all time.
Yeah. And I mean, the closest I think we come is like some of this more modern shit that we're talking about. But again, it's so new that you can't really compare it to like legacy titles.
Right.
Yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
But yeah, so we're talking about Moon Knight number 5. This is a whole bunch of guys. It's Lemire and Smallwood, of course, but then a bevy of guest artists like Sticco and Francavilla, who we've seen before at DC, I think. Torres, Belair, and Garland.
As with any of these Lemire Smallwood Moon Knights, the standout for me is, of course, the art.
Yeah, no question. Absolutely.
It's just so infinitely creative, you know? I mean, like, you think of this idea of, like, a comic page, and, you know, theoretically the possibilities are endless, you know, but a lot of people who say that churn out the same shit, like, year after year after year.
Right.
But this just has so many tricks that I have not seen, like, in other books. Like, this paneling isn't reminiscent of, like, fucking anything else that I can think of.
Right.
Yeah, other things have good paneling, but are they this type of paneling? No.
Right. Especially the negative space usage. I've never seen this much negative space in anything, and it is just immediately just pulls you in and is interesting. And then this one, as much as we've loved Smallwood's work artistically, they bring in a bunch of guest artists to show different, I don't know, psychotic breaks or, you know, these different episodes or personality changes, different eras even of Moon Knight as he sort of moves through consciousness or something. And we get different artists doing the different areas, and each one of them is super interesting and fun to look at. It's like all these other guys are trying to be as interesting as Smallwood's work on here.
Yeah, the keys cause them to up their game.
Right.
Which is awesome. And so let's talk about Lemire a little bit. I think he's doing a really good job of prolonging this sense of I think I know what's going on, but do I really know what's going on? Probably not.
Right.
Because that's something you can only like drag along for so long and make interesting.
Right. But it's also really the crux of Moon Knight as well. So that's a tough,
super important
thing to walk.
Right. And so far, I mean, every time I've thought that I was going to be bored with it or, okay, now it's going to get typical and stupid, he's found a way to not do that. So, I mean, 5th issue, yeah, it's only the 5th issue, but if he can continue this for another 7 or so, this is going to be, I think, one of those great Moon Knight books.
I think so, too. And I still won't say that the writing is incredible. It's just pretty good. But then the art just takes it over the top and puts it in the top for us.
Sure.
The writing is good enough to do the trick for what you need. But there's nothing truly incredible happening on the writing. Let's not go too far.
Yeah, I still think it's probably some of Lemire's best work.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good. I mean, I would place it over a 7, I think. Minimum like 7.5,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah. I'm with you.
It's not like a 9 or a 10, but...
Right. I mean, this isn't, Saga of the Swamp Thing or...
Yeah. It's not a supermodel, but it's a pretty hot girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, so that takes us to the bottom stuff for the month.
Let's talk about the shit.
Let's start off just talking about a couple that we're only going to mention recently because we've already gone over this last month. First, let's talk about Batman, Tom King's Batman. We have dropped this already. We decided that mid-month, but we had already gotten these and read them.
Actually, apologize to Tom King on Twitter for dropping it. He said that he understood. Yeah. So I feel better about it.
We have seen now some interviews with Tom King where he really talks about how he's really trying to write this simplistically for a younger audience. Like everything from Rebirth that I've read, it's dumbed down. I mean, I don't mean to say that rudely, but it is. It's targeted clearly at a younger audience.
Just total disappointment, because when I read his interviews prior to going to actually writing it, it sounded like he was going to go the exact opposite direction.
Right.
It sounded like he was going to make the most adult-ass Batman title that anybody's seen in like a long time.
Right.
But he didn't. So
yeah,
whether that was editorial coming down or like a personal decision, it's just not doing it for us.
Who knows? So that's that. Superman, kind of the same deal where it's just, this one is just sort of a mess, really. It's the art's just kind of hard to follow. It's got a cool, fun look to it, but ultimately the writing is just not worth reading. It's just not at the level of the other things we're reading, so why keep reading it, right?
It doesn't feel like he has a reason to write this book. Yeah. Other than like getting paid.
To get paid. So. Like they needed somebody to write Superman, so let's have, Tomasi write Superman, and great.
Yeah.
So while we're talking about Rebirth stuff, we did pick up Blue Beetle Rebirth #1. Now, don't get confused. That's not Rebirth's Blue Beetle #1. It's Blue Beetle Rebirth #1.
Yeah, the first #1. The next #1's coming out next month.
Right. This is Giffen, the guy who actually created Blue Beetle in the first place. It's just okay. It's another young adult focused DC Rebirth book that doesn't really feel like it needs to exist.
Yeah, if this was like the real issue #1, like I would say let's drop it. I don't ever want to read it again. But because this is just like the #1 before the #1, we decided to give it one more. We'll see how it goes. If it's anything like any other Rebirth shit, like it's probably going to be bad. We can give it a shot.
Yeah. I think at this point we're holding off for Young Animal for the most part. We've sort of...
I want one good DC book. Like, why is there not one good one?
Yeah. I think it's that they know people who actually like that sort of thing will pick it up later. And they're really going for the casual, younger and lapsed, older man-child kind of readers, the people who used to read all of Jeff Johns' stuff before New 52, like all the Green Lantern garbage, and Flash Rebirth.
Wait, I mean Red Lantern. What? I mean Blue Lantern. Wait, I mean Yellow Lantern. Wait, I mean Orange Lantern. Wait, I mean fucking Translucent Lantern.
The color spectrum and all that soap opera nonsense.
The Mauve Lanterns.
I feel like they're just trying to get those people back, and they know that like guys like us will come back and read the other stuff later because we actually give a shit about quality of content, not just the soap opera aspect. Right. So
well, I don't understand why they look down on trade so much, because I've seen interviews where I think they're talking about Gotham Central, and one of the creators was like, look, in trade form this thing's selling like fucking hotcakes, like nobody can keep it in. And then Jim Lee told him, well, we're not really concerned about trades, we don't even factor that into our sales numbers for like this series, whatever.
Right.
Why?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this stuff, if you ask me, they should just stop doing singles. Why even do Young Animal? Why even do singles? Just trade. Just put it straight to trade, and then you don't have to try to figure out if people will buy the trade. Just do the trade, right? Marvel does the same thing. They were talking to that Alex Alfonso or whatever the fuck his name was, and he said that it's people that wait for trades that are the fault of why a lot of good stuff fails. Like, well, fuck you, man. Like, why are you releasing it if you don't care if people buy it anyway?
Yeah,
like,
sorry for paying money for your fucking shit.
Yeah, dude, my apologies for preferring a different format. It's stupid as hell, and they put it out like 4 months late. I'm like, of course nobody gives a shit by then. They forgot it was a thing. Like, put it out like Image does. #4 comes out, and then like a week later, put out #1 through #4 in trade, so you can pick it up and get back on it.
Man, I think I've mentioned this before, but I wish they would do it like a TV. Like, have say maybe like a quarter of the year where this book's just coming out every week, and then the other 3 quarters of the year, don't fucking put it out.
Right.
Just work on the next one.
Right, and get the trade ready.
Yeah, get all the back
even if you don't put it out right afterwards, just get it ready so it's there before the next season. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then a month goes by, that's 4 issues. That's a trade. Another month goes by, that's 4 issues. That's a trade.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Or just like a big trade. Do like six or do a storyline and then wait a while.
Yeah.
Make that into a trade, put it out right before the next one starts. So you can go pick up the trade and then read the next, right?
Yeah. Because, I mean, there's a lot of books, like Fade Out, I think, honestly probably would have been, I mean, I enjoyed the shit out of reading it, but if I had just read it in trade, I think it would have been, like, even better.
Yeah.
I think it would have just absolutely blown me away.
Right.
And there's a place for stories like that, and we can't just discount those types of stories just because the format that they're best in doesn't line up with fucking the accounting section.
Sure. And it would also give them a chance to see what sells in trade before optioning season 2, right? Do the first season, release the trade, see did people buy the trade?
Yeah.
Okay, well, do season 2 of it now, right? But no.
We have 9 months to figure it out and make new shit, so plenty of time. Anyway.
They don't. So let's talk about the failures at Marvel real quick.
Yep.
This is running pretty long. We need to get done, so let's push this quick. Let's talk about Daredevil Annual number 1. The art was pretty cool in this, so that's okay, but the story was just dumb.
Yeah, this is bananas.
There was a lot of really obvious plot holes. There was a lot of cheese going on. It just didn't make much sense.
There's a backup story on the other side of like 7 pages of ads.
Yeah, it was poorly put together. It was just unremarkable. But it's an annual, so who cares?
The regular series is good. It was just a bad annual.
Yeah, so we won't. We're dropping the annual. So
not reading any more annuals.
So it's cool.
Next year they're not getting our money.
Yeah. We'll show them. I think that's it with that, right? Like it's pretty much all it was. It was just kind of dumb. Power Man and Iron Fist number 7. Who is this? Walker, right? Green, Flaviano, and Rausch. We've loved this series for the most part. Like 1 through 6 were really funny
and clever and original.
Yeah, and had really great characters, and they spent just enough time on each character to let them shine. And this one was just kind of flailing about and lost most of the humor, right?
Yeah, I want to blame it on the Civil War II tie-in kind of thing, but it was a completely different tone than we were used to from this book, which is already kind of off-putting in itself, because you just can't do that.
Right.
And then by those standards, like even after like the mental reset, it's like, okay, I'm going to come at this from a different angle. It wasn't that good for that type of story either. So it just felt like they were pushed into a corner where they weren't, really comfortable or, not as creative as they usually were, and it didn't work out. Yeah,
I feel like maybe the idea here was to sidestep what's going on with the Civil War. Let's put him in jail. If you put Iron Fist in jail, then he can't be involved, and that will give Luke Cage something to be concerned about that isn't the big stupid event, right? So I can understand like dodging the event because the events are fucking dumb, and I applaud them for not doing a tie-in and instead, finding a way to go around it, but it just didn't really work for me.
Yeah, hopefully this is just sort of a necessary issue, and the next one's kind of a return to form.
Yeah, and mostly it was just not funny.
Yeah.
And what's the point of reading, a comedy book or something that you expect comedy and then it's just not. It's just,
It's like watching that bad fucking Comedy Central Presents special and you're just staring at it and people in the audience are laughing and you're just kind of...
Yeah.
All right, Facebook, Twitter, maybe Tumblr.
Yeah, we'll be back next week with more of this kind of thing.
We sure will.
Yeah, bye now.